Don Hutchison, friends with Steven Gerrard, so let's see what he says when I ask him whether or not it is the right decision.
No, wrong decision. No,
Why,
I'm joking,
Don?
Dan. I'm joking because it was a painful watch. It's 1 win in 9. The cameras kept panning on Steven Gerrard, and it was a hard watch for him because his side were awful. I mean, when your best player is Ashley Young, that tells a tale because he was the only one that had a little bit of fight in him, a little bit of quality. Tyrone Mings and Bednarek, the 2 centre-backs, didn't get tight to Mitrovic. They weren't aggressive enough. John McGinn, Douglas Luiz, Jacob Ramsey in midfield didn't get tight. They allowed Fulham to play with confidence. And he said after the game, he went, when you make a team like Fulham look good, you know you're in trouble. And it was a real poor performance. It was a team that are struggling for any sort of confidence. He tried to play Watkins, Ings and Bailey to have that attacking sort of power at the top end of the pitch, but in truth, the 3 of them were wide apart and miles away from each other. There was no real rhythm. It's a team that's lacking in confidence. And as I said, the cameras kept panning on him. And he must have been thinking, what am I watching here? And then you show the Douglas Luiz red card. That's all you need, going down to 10. And then in truth, the scoreline could have been 5 or 6.
But Donny's been backed, hasn't he? They brought him a lot of new players. What went wrong?
I mean, the only excuse I would give him, Dan, he's had quite a few injuries to major signings and major players. But still, I mean, when you look at the 11 tonight, you look at Coutinho, Buendia, Dendoncker on the bench, there's a good group of players to work with, a really good group of players to work with, but they're lacking in confidence. They're lacking in, when you look at all the individuals that are really good players, it's actually quite difficult to try and wonder what your best 11 is. He brings Buendia in for a game. He signed Philip Coutinho on the back of last season because in moments and in games he looked pretty good. All of a sudden he looks a little bit old and a little bit sort of lightweight in a man's game where he's struggling to get around the pitch. So he probably doesn't trust him for 90 minutes. Then you're trying to pick some good players to try and organise them into 11 where you can try and generate a win and a bit of momentum. And they've just not had it, Dan. They've not had it for a long time. 1 win in 9, going into the bottom 3. And you just knew, when you're in the game, the cameras pan on a manager, and he knew, Stevie probably knew after probably 55, 60 minutes of the game that he wasn't going to see Brentford at the weekend.
Why was there no response from the players, though, Stevie, given they knew what was at stake here?
Well, that's the biggest question of all. Sorry,
I was
Stevie.
asking Stevie, Don.
Sorry,
Don,
sorry, I thought you meant Stevie Gerrard, sorry.
Don's doing his best to get Stevie G back in the job there, by the way. all the excuses. You know what? At the end of the day, when you're in trouble and your players know you're in trouble, then you kind of find out how much they really want you. And this performance lacked any sort of desire or will to win or I'm playing for the boss. I mean, there was nothing there. If you're the owner or the director of football or whoever it is that makes the final decision, yes, you want the result, but the one thing you're looking for is are the players playing for this guy? And after watching today, they are not playing for him. And it's very difficult to argue for Steven Gerrard. You know, can you imagine a year ago, in fact, he's had 38 games. Can you imagine a year ago, he was having an interview for this job and said, give me 100 mil, give me 38 games, and I'll give you 12 wins. They would have went, what? they would have thrown him out the door. So Stevie, it's very difficult to argue for them. At the end of the day, you've got to win games, and at the very least, your players have got to show some heart and desire for you, and they didn't.
The general consensus, Stevie, of course, was this was going to be the stepping stone for Steven Gerrard then to take over Jurgen Klopp when he left Liverpool. What does that do to that narrative?
Yeah, all the best. All the best. Who? Stephen who? Yeah. No, I'm afraid. Listen, any player that's ever had a connection with a club who becomes a manager automatically, you know, gets he's going back there, whether it's Liverpool or Man United with Ryan Giggs or anybody else, and then of course, very, very rarely does it pan out, and I don't expect this one to pan out either.
Stevie, he's travelling back on the team bus. How's that feeling?
I don't imagine there'll be many words spoken. I think it'll be a silent journey.
Right.
In
Tyrone
fact,
Mings won't be
he's
leading
probably
the
got a
chance.
lift ready. He probably had a lift. He probably had a lift waiting just in case, because he probably knows his players better than any of us. So he probably had a little Joe Baxi ready for him to take him home tonight.
Pochettino, of course, Don, linked to the job quite a bit over the last couple of days. Why would he want it?
Good question. I don't think he's got much money to spend unless he goes into that interview demanding money to spend, which I don't think Villa have got. I think if he asks Christian Purslow what funds he's got available, well, Stevie didn't have any funds to go again in the summer and then potentially go in January. So unless they're going to release a lot of money for Pochettino, then you're right. Why would he take that job? They're going towards the bottom three. He might look at the individual players and the squad that he's got to work with, and he might think, well, I can get some wins, I can generate a bit of momentum and get them a few places higher up the league. But to be honest, Dan, I don't know what the ceiling is for Villa. And I felt that when Stevie G took the job, I thought, what's the ceiling there? Because he's not going to get them top four. Impossible. Highly, highly unlikely to try and get them into top six, top seven. So is Pochettino going to get that? Definitely not this season. Is he going to get it next season? Probably not. So it might be one for Pochettino. Like he actually looks at it, takes the phone call and says, no, thanks, not for me.
Well, thank you very much for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming, premium content, and let's not forget as well, ESPN FC 7 days a week. Subscribe to ESPN Plus.